Hey you guys, what is going on? We have new engine code jet tags available right now. The link is in the description. Alright you guys, BMW M2 time. This is a car that I've been wanting to drive for years since it came out. The moment BMW announced this car, it got me very excited because I had driven an E46 M3, I had driven an E36 M3, and this is kind of a throwback to those cars, okay? Modern M cars are generally a lot bigger, they've got way too many driver aids, and they're just numb, okay? But this should be, from what I've heard, and from the specs and everything like that, should be a lot closer to the old school analog real M cars from the past in modern times. And yes, it has the 6-speed manual. So let's go for a drive. We'll see what it's all about and how it compares to some of the other modern cars. All right, so this is basically the modern equivalent of a 2JZ, and the reason why I said it's not, but the reason why I say that is because it is a 3-liter inline 6, okay? Now, obviously, BMW is, I mean, that's what they do. They do inline 6 engines. Obviously, they do V8s as well, but their bread and butter, and for what all the classic M cars are known for, is the inline 6. So, this is actually putting out, from the factory at least, 370 horsepower and about 369 pound-feet of torque during overboost. So plenty of torque, plenty of power. The reason why I was wearing sunglasses too, I was just trying to fit in with the M stereotype, with the BMW stereotype. I'm so sorry, but I'm not really. Anyways, so yes, this car is a lot tighter and a lot smaller than the M4, and guess what? It does not carry the incredible price that the 1M carries, okay? That 1M obviously was limited production, and those are going for like $60,000, $70,000 still to this day, which is above what the MSRP was. Crazy. But that actually just goes to show what a true M driver enthusiast actually wants out of a car, which is a manual transmission, small chassis, rear-wheel drive, and a bunch of feel. So, now driving this car, I have not driven a lot of modern M cars. I did drive an F10 M5 pretty recently with the V8. This thing does have a tune on it, okay? So what you get is a lot more overrun crackles in the exhaust. As well, it's running about 400 horsepower at the crank in its current configuration. Now, a few things you notice right off the bat that kind of take away from the analog nature of this car is the clutch feel. There's definitely some hydraulic assist there, which is good for daily driving. I mean, modern stuff, you kind of have to have it. But at the same time, do you really? If you really want to make a hardcore modern analog sports car, I don't know. If you're going to spec this with a manual, something tells me you don't want a very hydraulic assisted clutch, which this definitely does have. Shifter feels nice. It could be a little heavier, you know, a little bit more robust, but again, this is made to be an all-around car. It is a car that actually has 4 seats. It has 4 seats, so it's meant to be comfortable, but at the same time, maybe on the weekends you do a little bit of spirited driving. Now, obviously, the M2 competition just came out, and that is a whole other story that sadly I cannot compare to right now. But the torque of this engine is very punchy. It's not, you know, you don't have to wait for a very long time. The turbos spool up it's very responsive. Right around kind of 2,500 RPM, you get a lot of turbo spool. You don't really hear the turbos, especially with the windows up like they are now. You don't hear turbo spool whatsoever. You just feel that torque rush and you get sucked back in your seat. So like third gear, 2,500 RPM. There's boost. Pulls all the way. You get nice crackles. Oh man. It's very nice. I love it. I love it a lot. Obviously, being a driving enthusiast, a #save the manuals purist, I like a good manual and I like to nail a good heel tone downshift and to get good rev matches. Now this does have auto rev matching, so it will automatically flip the throttle when you downshift. All well and good. Makes you feel like a badass. It sounds awesome around the city. Doesn't take any effort on your part. It's a great feature. That being said, the only way to turn that off in this car and to actually do your own rev matches unobstructed is to turn traction all the way off. Completely 100% off. Which is fine, but we're on the street right now, and quite honestly, I'm not going to turn traction all the way off because we're on the street and I'm not pushing this car to its absolute limits. Kind of disappointing that you have to do that to turn off auto rev matching. That being said, it's a very small gripe in a car that is otherwise very true to what M has been in the past up until kind of 2010 after the E92 M3, in my opinion. Now the E92 M3 with a good tune and straight pipes, not even straight pipes, just a good exhaust, is one of the best sounding cars on the planet. And no, the same cannot be said about this M2. It is not one of the best sounding cars on the planet, but it sounds very nice. It has plenty of torque to go around. All the modern conveniences of like an M5, but in a way better platform. This is way better. The car looks sick, but it's also very understated. This does not attract a lot of attention. Honestly, it doesn't look all that much different than a normal 2 Series. It's not very crazy. It's not riced out like the new Civic Type R. Feels like it has to be very shouty, although the Civic Type R does back up its performance far and away, right? And this does too. It just doesn't have to be all shouty about it. People who know M cars know M cars. M has such a following that BMW can make an understated looking car like this, and people already know it's going to be great. People already know with the manual it's going to be good. You can get this with a dual clutch, although I've never driven it with a dual clutch, but I can already tell you, get the manual. But that's just how I am. Oh, I think that's an M6 up ahead. Try to catch that. It is plenty fast. Oh my god. Plenty fast. Honestly, this would definitely give an E92 M3 a run for its money in a straight line. Absolutely, no doubt. So what BMW has essentially done here is taken the formula from the E46 M3 and stuffed it into a similarly sized package with modern tech and modern feel. This is basically, what I'm trying to say is this is basically as close as you can get to a full analog 90s M experience or early 2000s, mid-2000s M experience without having a car that might break down on you every weekend. You know, there's a lot less headaches when you're talking about a modern car. I've got to say though, I like the looks of this car a lot better than the M3 and M4. I think this car looks incredibly nice. I'm a small car guy though. I'm a small car guy, lightweight, manual transmission, rear wheel drive. That is what I'm about. So obviously I'm going to be biased for this car compared to the M3. And hopefully we can do a comparison video between the F80 M3 and this car in the future. But everything else about this car is awesome. The interior is great. BMW kind of has all this stuff nailed, obviously. They've been in the business for long enough. And modern M cars are great. Yes, they do have this kind of tablet-looking screen on the dashboard that you cannot get rid of. It doesn't go down, but it's not big. It's incredibly widescreen, and it doesn't obstruct your visibility or anything. And you control it by this little dial down here. Very intuitive, totally fine. The one thing I do love about this car is the gauge cluster. BMW stuck with it. BMW still uses analog gauges. Thank you, M. Please continue to do that. I'm not a fan of the new AMG digital displays. I'm just not a fan. It's gonna look dated in a few years, and there's something about seeing a physical needle rev up to red line and you're controlling that physical object in the dashboard, right? Rather than just a digital screen that kind of moves around and stuff. It's not placed deep in the dash. It's right in front of you. Speedo, tack, that's it. It's great. There we go. See, like, it's got turbos, so you get the torque punch in the mid-range, and that's where generally around town you'll be using the power and the torque, but you still can rev it out and it still pulls right to redline. Like, that is a very long pull in third gear. That's an incredibly long pull. It's awesome. It's really cool. And you get different characteristics all throughout the rev range, which makes this an absolute joy to drive. It really does. So these brakes are actually straight off the M3, M4. They didn't, wow, that's loud. They didn't bother to put different brakes on this car. And you know what? I'm glad, because this car weighs a lot less than that car. It's awesome. It's like unintentionally a better M car. I love it. I love it so much. And it's cheaper. But here's the thing, it's turbocharged, so you can get like a nice tune for it, do a downpipe, do an exhaust, and pick up like 50 horsepower without compromising the reliability of this car. And that's one thing that can be said about this car that cannot be said about an E46 M3 or an E92 M3. This is a perfectly sized car. BMW, just thank you for making this car, honestly. Digs in, it's got 245s up front and 275s in the rear. Plenty enough grip. I do wish the steering had a little bit more feel when you really start to dive into it, but there's traction. You can approach the limits very, very progressively in this car. It is, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Now let me just say, suspension is a little bit stiff for a daily driver. It is a little bit stiff. But that being said, again, if you're buying a manual M2, you kind of want something that's better in the corners, better handling. But I'm just here to tell you, yes, it does come with a sacrifice. And that sacrifice is, after a long drive, your back might start to hurt, I'm not going to lie. Now, that will not be a fault of the seats. The seats are great. But I couldn't imagine that the M2 competition is any better. It's probably worse. Steering does weight up a little bit in the corners, but just, it's like a taste of what M cars used to be without actually being an actual old M car, like a classic. It's weird to call an E46 M3 a classic M car, but it is a classic now. And it's, honestly, if you're looking at an M2, that's exactly what it is. It is a taste of those cars while having modern styling, modern conveniences, reliability, warranty, etc., okay? That's what it is. And better chassis dynamics all around, because obviously technology has improved, so you're going to get better lap times on the track. That doesn't really matter on the street for me. It's all about feel, which this car does have. And I would totally consider buying one of these cars. It's a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely subscribe if you haven't already. We've got a bunch of cars coming up. If you guys don't know, we film modified cars, exotics, basic daily drivers. Yes, I call the M2 basic. Daily drivers such as the M2, performance cars, everything like that, and JDM imports as well. So subscribe if you want to see more of that. Follow me on Instagram at Untraveled if you want to follow exactly what we're doing on a daily basis. We'll see you guys soon.